Hello everyone, let's try that again, but this time with actual audio. My microphone was muted. Doe. Anyways, as I was saying, I have... Anyways, as I was saying... Oh, come on. It's always something. Okay, let's start again. Hi everyone, I'm Eric Keller, and we're going to continue with the Longhorn Beetle this week that started last week, and working on the mesothorax. I have a cold, so I'll probably just do an hour for today, and hopefully the cold won't last too long. As usual, there's something going around. I think in the post-COVID world, all the germs have decided now's the time to party, get out there before another, pandemic comes along. Do their best to make us miserable. So I want to do a quick plug for a couple of things. First of all, please visit my YouTube channel and like and subscribe. It's at Bluebatone or Bluebatone. Do a search for it there. And I have a lot of cool insect stuff, some stuff regarding the work I did on Wednesday, some jewelry stuff, and then more bug stuff, and then some shorts and everything. So please check that out. Please subscribe. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe, you know the deal. So there's that. And then also, if you want to check out, I have some courses on Udemy regarding ZBrush. ZBrush for jewelry designers, understanding ZBrush geometry. So this goes through the difference of subdivision surfaces, and Dynamesh, and Nanomesh, and all the different mesh types, and some advice on when to use Dynamesh and when to use Decimation or Sculpt Pro and all that kind of thing. There's no hard and fast rules, but it's nice to have some guidelines. Then I also have ZBrush for jewelry designers. This is the fundamentals. It's really the fundamentals of ZBrush. It's an intro course that's just targeted towards jewelry designers or people who want to sculpt stuff that is going to be cast and printed or cast in metal. So check that out. But it's really an overall introduction to ZBrush. And then I have a new one, hot and new, demystifying ZBrush materials. It's all about ZBrush materials, standard, matte cap, redshift materials, how to use them, what all the settings mean in the materials palette, and how to render effectively with them. So check that out. And almost done here. Also want to promote, I have a bunch of videos on the Gnomon Workshop regarding insects and spiders, but also Intro to Maya and UV editing. I'm actually in the process of updating this one right now for UV editing. So check out the Gnomon Workshop. And lastly, here's my portfolio where you can see some of my work. And yeah, there's a lot of bugs up there, as well as jewelry stuff and my demo reel and all that kind of good stuff. So thanks very much, and let's get back into sculpting. Hello, Brazil. How's it going, Fabiano? It's nice to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. I know this month I've been like all over the map in terms of time, so I appreciate everybody who's been following me and tuning in. And I've really been enjoying the stuff that you've been posting on Instagram, Fabiano. It's great stuff. Keep it coming. This is cool because this I love these little weird nooks and crannies, and I think it's insects are such like natural sculptures. It's always amazing the kind of things that you can pick up from looking at their closely at their anatomy. You can also see all the things you're getting wrong. Like for instance, I think I need to pull this whole bit down a little bit. Let's do this. I'm going to pull down the legs here, and then S hotkey is not working. Oh well. One of the things I've been doing lately, I've been getting back into doing characters as well as, you know, bugs and creatures and stuff. And trying to get back in the habit of doing a 30-minute warm-up exercise every day, where I do like, I'll take a Loomis head, like I have this really nice, this is a sculpt that John Brown did that you can purchase. Figures and Focus is his website, and it's really useful. So I set a timer for like 30 minutes and every day, and I just see if I can sculpt that from a sphere, how far I can get in 30 minutes, and then every day I start a new one, and it's a really great way to learn. You know, I kind of don't worry about if it comes out good or not. I just kind of hang on to them, and you know, and every once in a while review them just to see my progress. But you know, it's a great way to really learn anatomy. I think I might know what's causing the problem. Let me see. Do I still have Lazy Nizumi open? No. So what I want to do is I'm trying to create this this space right here between these two pieces. So you can see this being tucked in and around this part right here. I have to go back to the spacebar method. I'm pulling up the draw size. Normally I use the S hotkey, but for some reason it's not working right now. The other hotkeys are working. Oh, how is Black Rose going? It's going well. Those who don't know, Black Rose is a movie that John Brown has written, and he's filming it right now. And it's getting there. We're almost done with the filming. He has me starring as a character, Nathan Rose. If you follow Sculptor Dude 01 on Instagram, you can see shots from the movie. He's been posting a lot, so it's really great if you're an aspiring filmmaker to kind of just watch. You know, it's a great way to watch kind of a film being made in progress. And of course, it's all guerrilla filmmaking, so it's not like, you know, we get permits or anything like that. We just show up at places in LA and film until we start to feel like, you know, the cops are taking notice or something like that. We have gotten, you know, we've gotten a little bit of the fuzz, not necessarily chasing us or anything like that, but close. He's got a stunt woman who does a lot of parkour, and she was training us on how to basically do guerrilla filmmaking, how to get in, get the shots, and get out before the cops show up. And she was telling us all kinds of stories of being chased for hours by the cops in all kinds of different places. It's really funny. But I'm too old for this kind of stuff. And that's the kind of thing I did when I was 16. Not now that I'm, you know, 22, right? But it's a cool movie. We got it's cyberpunk kind of film, and what's really cool is that we did some filming at a robotics lab up in Bakersfield at a training facility there that trains people in industrial robotics. It's a really nice place, a great set. It was a whole lot of fun to film there. So I got to pal around with some of the Boston Dynamics robots as well as a bunch of other ones. And we actually did, we created kind of like, I would describe it as a suit that we could, because we're, you know, it's all very stylized, kind of cyberpunky Blade Runner kind of stuff. So it's not, you know, the technology in the movie is not Apple design. It's more like, you know, like classic retro cyberpunk design. So we created this suit, or I should say, yeah, we all created it together. We designed some stuff in ZBrush, and a bunch of us, Ian Robinson as well as myself. We printed out, did some designs in ZBrush, and actually did some 3D prints, and kind of glued it onto the robot. It's really cool. So if you check out, check out Sculptor Dude 01. He's a great person to follow anyways on Instagram. Did I spell it right? I put an I in there. That's good. Check out his Instagram. It's really cool. And so the other funny thing about it is that there's a lot of, I probably mentioned this last week, there's a lot of ZBrush people in there in the movie playing roles. So Louis Tucci plays a role in it. Paul Gabry is in there. Ian Robinson, and a few others. Some Noman alum. A lot of Noman people in there. It's a really cool movie. I can't wait to see what it looks like when it's done. I gotta do another filming tomorrow night. We're just picking up the last few shots now. But it was funny because we did a whole scene where the robot dog, evil robot, well, I don't know if it's evil, but it's a robot dog, chases down Ian Robinson, who plays kind of like a corporate suit guy in the movie. Chases him down, and well, it doesn't go so well for Ian. The robot's fine. But that's a really cool scene. It's a lot of fun to do. Okay, let's see what's going on here. I think that I need a bit more space here. So what we got is this kind of thing right here. Let's draw this out. Let's draw out the boundaries. This, I believe, is the top of the elytra. So this right here is this part right here. Yeah. From its perspective. I'm also, I spend a lot of time sculpting in orthographic, and I'm starting to do that less. I'm starting to sculpt in perspective more because it's been throwing me off for a while now. Because, you know, I usually try and match, you know, if you're trying to match an orthographic view like a diagram or a photograph with a really long focal length, it's great, but I found that it's become kind of too much of a bad habit, and then I turn on perspective and everything looks terrible. So I'm doing a little bit more of sculpting just straight up in perspective. I think this can be squished down quite a bit. Takes a while to get the proportions on these things right. Of course, the other thing you have to be careful of is gradually just making everything bigger. The other thing that I got this week, I'm very excited. If you follow me on Instagram, BluePatone01, I'll be posting more about this, but I just got a Rococo motion capture suit. Me and Irene, my partner in crime, and my overall life partner, and she's fantastic ZBrush artist as well, CG artist. So we invested in a Rococo together so we can start making movies of our own in Unreal and animating my ZBrush sculpts. So yeah, I'll probably do some cool insect stuff. But you know, after working with John for a while, it kind of got me inspired to make the movies that I've always wanted to make, that I've always kind of put off because I've been worrying about work and stuff like that for years and years. And so I'm trying to relax about that and saying, okay, well, it's now or never. Time to make some movies. And the technology is there, man. So we all should be making movies. The great punk band Minutemen used to say back in the 80s that there should be a band for every block. You know, it's a punk rock thing to do. Well, everybody who has a computer should be making a movie of some sort. Or something. So I'm getting into that. So we're working on that, and I'll be posting on my Instagram. We managed to get the thing up and running today. We tried it out, updated all the firmware, got it working. So I can't wait to post some stuff. It's also why I'm getting back into character sculpting. Let's do a little clay polish here just to clean things up a little bit. I always like to do that every once in a while when I'm in this block out phase because it just makes everything nice and neat. Just remember that leaves a mask behind, so you got to clear that mask after you do it. Okay, so we have, let's do this. Some cool details going on right here. I don't want to miss. Yeah, the movie that I want to make takes places in exotic locales and other times, like 19th century stuff. And I can't really film that. I don't have any budget for fake plants or actors. So why not do it in Unreal? And I was checking out watched a few of the Rococo webinars, and they did impress me because what's nice about it is it's a very affordable suit. It's not like a $20,000 setup, and it doesn't use the classic ping pong balls. Instead, the suit has sewn into it basically sensors that detect rotation. So it detects the rotation, the relative rotation of all the different parts of your limbs, and it has a little holder so you can actually, a little headset rig so you can attach an iPhone or a phone and do facial capture with facial capture software, and it will integrate it into their software. And it also has a pair of gloves, and then you basically it also, if you want to boost the signal, you can buy this extra coil setup, which is basically like a electromagnetic field, generates an EMF, which improves the accuracy of the fingers and the gloves and all that kind of stuff. So it saves a lot of time and cleanup of animation. I'm still waiting on the coil to show up, but we have the suit and the gloves so far. Okay, let's do some editing here on I'm going to actually increase the resolution here. So it looks like what I want to do is I want to pull this up. So are there any movies coming out that people are excited about? For me, it's pretty much Beetlejuice is the main one that I'm excited about. Yeah, the thing about the camera and ZBrush is its focal length is totally made up. It doesn't really simulate a real camera. Another thing you can do though to get slightly more accurate, if you use like Maya or Blender or something like that, you can export your cameras as an FBX, bring that into to ZBrush, you know, using the FBX importer plugin, right? You can even just import cameras only if you wanted to, and that's also another way if you have an easier time setting camera parameters in another program like Blender or Cinema or Maya or whatever. But the camera settings are in the draw palette, and they've got, you know, some focal length presets here. Let's see, but they're kind of wonky. You can see, and then you can also change the slider. Let's go back to like 50. But then when you good store cameras, and when you import them from, if you have multiple cameras in your FBX, they'll be listed down here too, so that can be really helpful too. I use that a lot when I'm matching stuff for a client, you know. So let's do this. Let's work on these legs, the rear legs, just a little bit. Also, let's save next. So what I'm going to do is let's take a look at these back legs. Back legs are kind of cool. You can split these into different parts. They already actually are different parts. So we Dynamesh with groups on. Groups. There we go. Increase the resolution a little bit. Oops. There we go. We even have a little bit right here. Let's do mask by polygroup. This one is just for you guys, this Beetle model. I am working on a number of fly models and various other models for, hey, my S key is back, for museum in Berlin. Those some of those are on my website if you're curious. You just gave me an opportunity to plug my website again. Thanks. So these right here are done for a museum in Germany, and they're based on scan data. They still need some work. They're not quite done there yet. But they're rendered in Redshift for Maya. I like that one. He's cute. I like how the eyes came out in this one. Some beautiful mouth parts here. So I'm actually working with scientists on this one, so there's some things I need to fix in terms of the anatomy, getting things right. You know, scan data is tough to work with because it's all a big blob, especially this stuff down here. You really have to work hard at sorting it out. And, you know, something like the genitals of a fly are very specific to a species, so it's not like you could just look up. Of course, if you look up fly genitals, you know, good luck on Google what you're going to find. But you really do have to find the right species if you can, and some of these species are kind of obscure, so that's why I have to work with scientists. And then this one's kind of wild. This one's okay. I think it needs some more work. I did paint effects for the hairs and the antenna here, but I like how the wing muscles came out, and the eyes in this one are really nice. But these are all, yeah, like I said, for a museum. And then of course we have Megacelia, Ford fly. These are the itty bitty tiny teeny tiny flies. These have really wild antennae if you look at them. They're totally nuts. The mouth parts are very different too. So anyways, so those are for a client. This one is just for the live stream. It's one of these models that I've been meaning to model. Organisms that has been meaning to model for a long time and just now getting around to it. Let's see where my reference went. Yeah, insects are just like anything else. The more you practice, the better you get. Of course, I've done it at the expense of some other things I'd love to model. I do love modeling arachnids as well, so I do that whenever I can. Maybe when I finish this project, I'll do an arachnid next. Always wanted to do a lynx spider. It's one of my favorite spiders. But I'd love to do, like, I like to do lizards every once in a while when I get a chance. My lizard skills are not as good as my insect skills. The other one, I've only done I've only done a duck. Duck is the only bird I've ever done, but I really love birds, and there are some CG artists that do just freaking amazing birds. That's something that I could spend a lifetime doing. Here's dinosaurs, Stick these over here. I'm sure this no longer matches my reference, but that's okay. I really felt like I needed more space here. Didn't look right. Excuse me, sorry about the cold again. It's been happening a lot lately. My S hotkeys mysteriously started working again, which is nice. Let's zoom in a bit on this. One thing I noticed that, alright, I apologize. This is a little bit of a flex, and it's not something I normally do, but, or at least I try and be more subtle about it, but I'm throwing subtlety out of the window. I did get to go to the Emmys this past year. I didn't win. I was nominated, though. It was nice. But I got to go to the after party, which was cool. I saw Neville Page there. It was really neat talking to him. But I saw a lot of people were wearing insect pins as jewelry. So I got to get back into that because it's basically a really hot hot subject matter for jewelry right now among all the glitterati. It's fun because I got to go to the Nerd Emmys, so it's not like I was hanging out with a whole lot of celebrities. Weird Al was there, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him. It's mostly for the people who do, you know, the real work in Hollywood, which is, you know, stuff like people like us, you know, CG artists and practical sculptors and all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, bugs were a big fashion item there. How did I get into sculpting? Let me see. Well, it's because I failed at music. No, it's like I actually I just developed. I've always really enjoyed computers, even way back in the 80s, just making stupid stuff on it, even if it was just dumb little programs. I'm not much of a programmer, but I liked making art on it back in the days, long before Windows, when you did like random colors and that kind of stuff. A long time ago, when I was a kid in high school, I actually programmed kind of a half-assed video game where you got to control the Death Star and fly around the galaxy blowing up planets. The planets, of course, were just different color circles because it wasn't 3D. But, you know, I went to school to study music. And when I got out of it, I realized that music is a horrible way to make a living. So when I got out of school, I hadn't really used computers that much. I used them a little bit in college to write papers and maybe to make some goofy cartoons and stuff, but I hadn't really spent a whole lot of time on computers. So when I got out of college and I was looking for work and I was waiting tables and stuff, I realized, number one, wasn't really cut out to be a professional musician. It's not a great career. It's a very difficult career. And it's not always that much fun. So realized really quickly that I didn't really want to do that. I was playing with computers, trying to learn them as fast as possible. And then I stumbled across a program called Ray Dream Design. So that is really old school. And I like rendered like a chrome sphere, and it just blew my mind. And it was like the most amazing thing. I hadn't really thought about doing computer graphics or any kind of 3D stuff before that, even though I'd seen Jurassic Park and all that other kind of thing. I remember the thing that had the biggest influence on me and got me most excited about CG was the episode of The Simpsons. I think it was one of the Halloween ones where they do a takeoff of Tron and they put Homer in 3D. It's like one of the first. It was the first 3D thing that they did before, like Futurama and stuff. So I got really excited about that. And so what happened is when I was really decided that I hated waiting tables, because that's what I was doing to make a living at the time. This is the late 90s, so I started learning web stuff. But I immediately caught the 3D bug from doing Ray Dream Design. And so I got a job just doing like temp stuff, creative temp stuff. Web stuff mostly, because web was huge back then, and they would hire any idiot off the street to do web stuff. And I was idiot number one. And I was very lucky that one of the temporary jobs that I interviewed for was at a place called the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which is in Bethesda, Maryland. I was in D.C. at the time. And luckily I hit it off with the people who interviewed me, because they were a bunch of scientists. They were all nerdy types. And I'd actually had a little bit of 3D on my portfolio. And they were impressed about that because they wanted somebody who could do not only web stuff, but also 3D. The main reason is that the Howard Hughes Medical Institute did an annual lecture series around Christmas time called the Holiday Lectures. For anybody from England, this is a takeoff of the famous Christmas lectures, right? And so they hired me to do the web stuff, but they also hired me to create animations for these lecture series. And the cool thing is that the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, it's a private philanthropic organization. It was an actual medical institute, and they have Nobel Prize winning scientists working for them. They're very large. At the time, they were the largest. Right when the Gates Foundation started, then they became the second largest. Anyways, excuse me for a moment. So they were like, look, we got a whole lot of money. Why don't you buy whatever software and hardware you want? We'll give you a budget of like $120,000, which is like, you got to be kidding me. But at the time, like, you know, a license of Maya was $16,000. That's how much Maya cost, because it was Maya version 1. And we had a Silicon graphics machine, one of those little blue toasters. That thing probably cost, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars. It's probably about as powerful as an iPad, you know. But so we put Maya on that, and I started learning Maya. But I was doing a lot of organic stuff. Back then, Maya was only NURBS. They didn't have polygons in Maya back then. Also, nickels had pictures of bees on them. So, give me 5 bees for a quarter is what we used to say. But anyways, so I tied an onion to my belt, which is the style at the time. And I started learning Maya version 1.0, all NURBS. I also, in my spare time, I was learning Lightwave. And there were a lot of promises at that time of digital sculpting software, right? Everybody was saying, oh, it's just like sculpting. And they had, like, you know, the sculpting mode in Maya, which was garbage. It wasn't even close to being like sculpting. And then there was other software, like I remember using a software called Amappy, which kind of had sculpting capabilities in it, but not really. So it was always kind of a disappointment. They'd always hype it up. But it was something that, it was like, basically like the Manhattan Project at the time. Everybody was trying to come up with sculpting software. And so, so I went to a Mac World. You know, the other great thing about working at Howard Hughes is they'd give me money to go to conferences and pay me to go there. So I went to a Mac World in New York, and this is about 2000. And there was a booth in the back, right next to the Jazz Drive people. You guys remember Jazz Drive? And it was Pixelogic, and they were showing off their 2.5D illustration tool called ZBrush. I believe it was even O'Fair himself who was giving the demo. At the time, all I cared about was Lightwave and Maya at the time. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about anything else. And I'd already been disappointed by so many, you know, promises of digital sculpting that I wasn't really optimistic that this was going to actually do anything, you know. And this was ZBrush like 1.0, I think. So it was really old, like 1.5. It was mostly 2.5D illustration. And so I got a little demo, put it on my laptop on the way home because I took the train up there. So I played with it on the train for about, I don't know, an hour. Said this is completely useless because it's not 3D, so I don't care about it, and I forgot all about it, and I never touched it again until the Return of the King came out, third installment of Lord of the Rings. And I remember I was reading a Cinefex. I was at work actually. I was reading a Cinefex on how they did all this stuff, and they were talking about how they. Because I think originally Gollum was actually a NURBS character, believe it or not. At least the first version of him was. But they had done the King of the Dead, that skeleton guy, in ZBrush. And when I read that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because all I knew about ZBrush was the goofy-ass 2.5D illustration, which seemed completely useless. So it's like, what happened in that time that made ZBrush finally actually useful? I don't think I even finished reading the article. I just downloaded a new demo, the latest version, started playing with it, and from that point on, I was absolutely hooked. So, and back in those days, you know, I was still mostly Maya and mostly Lightwave, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to learn ZBrush. So it was one of those situations where I kept learning it, and then I'd forget it, and then I had to relearn it, and learn it again. And I remember watching a Gnomon Workshop with Meets Mirror. He had the first ZBrush. Back then it was a VHS tape, actually. And his stuff was amazing. Of course, he's one of the few artists that actually embraced the 2.5D illustration thing. So I got hooked on ZBrush immediately, though. But we're doing all our details with a Projection Master, and it wasn't until ZBrush 3 came out that we really had the ability to work with subtools and that kind of stuff. And by that time, I was already living in Los Angeles, and I was taking classes at the Gnomon School. I took some classes with Maddie Spencer. Ara was in that class with me. Took a texturing class, and so it was a lot of fun. But that's when Gnomon was really small. And after going there for a while, I also got the opportunity to write a book on ZBrush, which I wrote several books, and I edited Maddie Spencer's book. And because I'd already been a professional CG artist for a number of years, so it's not like I didn't have any experience when I got to Hollywood. So eventually, I think I was at a SIGGRAPH, and I approached the Gnomon people, and they knew me from, going to the classes and taking classes with John Brown and stuff. And it's like, hey, can I teach a class? And so eventually they let me teach ZBrush. So I taught ZBrush at Gnomon for many years. Intro to ZBrush, intro to Maya. Later on, I taught like a creature sculpting class, creature design or whatever. That was a lot of fun. So I met a lot of people and I had a lot of students who are doing amazing stuff now. Letitia Gillette, back then, before she got married, Ronaldo, she was one of my students, one of my favorite students. She's a great ZBrush artist. And I believe she met her husband in my class too, Chris Gillette. He's really good ZBrush artist as well. Amy Sharp was in my class. I believe she took my class. There's a few students that took my class walked in there just being immensely talented already, so I can only really take credit for showing them where the buttons were. But then I had students who went on to teach at Gnomon and work at Disney and all kinds of stuff. So I think this part right here, this is the trochanter. So I think I'm going to make this a separate part from this right here. This is the coaxo, this is the trochanter. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that and hold the control key and mask this. This, and then Control W, and then Dynamesh with groups on, and now I have separate pieces here, right? So this is now its own piece. Yeah, I think that'll look nicer because I have a separation there. I'm still going to keep these things simple. I don't want to get too wrapped up in detail just yet. So I don't know if I'm even right on these things. And right now I'm just using one view, so I should probably look at some other reference in views real quick. Let's save next. New to sculpting. Okay. Lots of tricks. I mean, ZBrush is nothing but tricks, but I would say the approach is what you want to do. Is how you're going to learn ZBrush the best. So I'll give you a few ideas. You want to start creating a routine and try and repeat it every single day. Because what you will need to do, the hardest thing about ZBrush is not the actual sculpting. When I'm just talking about ZBrush here, and this is not an artistic thing, this is a technical thing. The hardest thing about ZBrush is remembering where all the freaking buttons are and what the buttons do. Why do I care about Dynamesh? Why do I care about ZRemesh or any of these kinds of things? So what you want to do is you got to start reinforcing those connections in your brain. The problem that we have is that when let's say we use ZBrush, we get in there, we sculpt for a few hours on a Monday, and then a few days go by and we open up ZBrush again and we're like, oh, we want to continue, but I'm new to ZBrush and I can't remember what this thing does, or how do I do this subdivision, or how does masking work? So you're going to waste some time relearning the stuff that you did on Monday, even though it's been a few days. So what I would recommend is start with, get a timer, set it for 20 to 30 minutes, and every single day, maybe the first thing you do in the morning or whatever, maybe the last thing before you go to bed, set that timer and do sculpt just total crazy garbage for 20 to 30 minutes straight. Don't worry about how good it is, how bad it is. Just explore, hit buttons, see what the brushes do, develop a feel for the brushes, right? Do that for like a month or whatever, or maybe a few weeks, whatever. And at a certain point, then what you might want to do is give yourself some subject matter to work with. A skull, human skull, is the best way to learn sculpting in ZBrush, because you can do it simplified, you can do it detailed, you can do it stylized. So after you get a little bit bored of just sculpting garbage, then spend 30 minutes a day, 20 to 30 minutes a day sculpting a skull from scratch. Just take a sphere, get some reference imagery, something like this, whatever, or other skulls. I have a whole bunch of reference stuff around here. And sculpt a skull for 30 minutes a day. Don't worry if it looks good. See all the different ways you can sculpt it. Try doing it with the jaw separate from the head. Try doing it with all one piece. Try just focusing on the planes. This is the way you learn how to use the H-polish brush and all this kind of stuff. Damn standard brush. By the time you've done a bunch of skulls and you start to feel confident with it, you'll feel very confident with ZBrush, but you also have a really good, because you want to build up, I can't make any assumptions about your prior artistic knowledge or experience, but you want to build up a second-hand, or I would say like a muscle memory for the different planes of the head, so that you don't have to think about it. Because really, I think like one of my biggest weaknesses is I'm not very good at doing likenesses. I have a hard time doing a really cool likeness, and I think part of it is because I haven't got that. It's like if I play guitar, right? I don't have to think about the notes. I know where all the notes are. I know how to play the blues scale back and forth. I can play a million blues licks without even thinking about it, because I did it for years and years and years. You know what I mean? Just over and over again. And I spent time studying all the notes in the fretboard, so I didn't have to think about it anymore. Music theory, etc. Whatever. You want to do the same thing with human anatomy. Hard to do with insect anatomy because insects are so incredibly different. But human anatomy is great because there's so much reference and there's so much material to draw on. So I recommend doing a skull every day. That's my biggest trick. You feel good about that, then tackle doing a head. Try doing the Loomis head. That's what I'm doing every day. Just working on the Loomis head, the planes of the face. Once I feel that's good, I'll add some flesh and, get back into sculpting characters. I mean, I've sculpted a bunch of characters before. It's something I like doing, but it's not. I'm not. There's people who are a lot better than me, which is an understatement. I'm sure you guys have probably seen the preview for that Jack Black sculpting tutorial. Jack Black is not giving the tutorials. Jack Black is the subject of the tutorial. That looks awesome. I gotta do that. I think that's inspiring me to get back into doing character stuff. I'm trying to get this. It's almost like a twist here, It's like. So the other thing I would recommend, since again, she just made it wide open for me to plug my stuff. right. So, Udemy course, check out. If you like the way I teach, check out ZBrush for jewelry designers. You may not be a jewelry designer, that's okay. This is a fundamentals course for everybody. It just focuses on teaching people who maybe have a traditional background, or teaching people who want to do something they print and cast it. But it really goes over all the fundamental aspects of the interface. Let me see if we can pull up the chapter list. So everything from loading up files, importing, exporting, subtools, all that good stuff, the grid, move brush, everything. So it's a comprehensive course. So check it out. If you're brand new to ZBrush. I know everybody has a ZBrush course, but hey, I'm gonna plug mine, right? I gotta get back into doing some jewelry stuff. I got some great ideas. The other thing that I've found that's really nice, and since I have this massive catalog of bug sculpts that I've done over the years, so I've been focusing on bugs a lot for the past maybe 15 years now. Let's say 12 years. I think 2012 is when I really got into just focusing on bugs. So I have a lot of insect models on my hard drive, and taking one of them and turning it into a cool piece of jewelry is not that hard for me now. And I've done it with a few things, so I just got to do some more of it. It's just a matter of time, you know. It's only a few hours, so many hours in the day. Let's see what this joint looks like. For those of you who are in the industry, you can let me know what you think about this, but I'm starting to hear like business is starting to pick up again. It's been super slow since the writer's strike. We haven't quite recovered as fast as we wanted to. But I'm seeing more filming going on in my neighborhood here in LA, and a lot of people I know are saying that the work is starting to pick up finally, which I hope so, because it's been a real drag. How do I feel about Sculptress? The mode or the program? Because it was a program before it was part of ZBrush. For those of you who don't know, Sculptress was actually a standalone free plugin, free program that some guy made, some programming nerd made as a hobby, and it's really good. It was so good that Pixelogic was like, we're gonna hire that guy. So they hired him. And for a while they offered it as a standalone. I don't know if they still do, if Maxon still does, but it's the Sculptress mode. They basically integrated it into ZBrush. So when you have that Sculptress mode turned on, you're using the same kind of technology that he had put into his original program. I like it for some things quite a bit, you know. Been doing long spindly things or whatever. I think it's great. I use it all the time. I did a tutorial on in a magazine a long time ago on Sculptress. Human head, I think. It's okay. Not my best head. The program. I thought it was a pretty cool program. I mean, the one that I have to get into is Nomad Sculpt. I haven't played with that yet. And I know Maxon has like another sculpting program before they acquired ZBrush. I forget what it was called. Forge or something like that. I haven't tried that. And I haven't tried ZBrush on the iPad yet. I'm not really into iPads. I mean, they're okay. I like working on desktop. I don't like working on laptops. But if I start traveling some more, I'll probably get an iPad and start playing with that stuff. It is nice to be mobile and working in ZBrush. You guys remember Mudbox? I remember everybody was freaked out about Mudbox. I thought it was going to destroy ZBrush. And it did not. It did not. Eventually Autodesk bought it. And made it part of Maya, and then they didn't really develop it that well, and then it kind of faded away, and Maya has its own sculpting tools, which I guess are the stepchild of Mudbox. Autodesk, for me, they're just too large a company. They make all their money off of engineering software and architectural software, so when it comes to the CG stuff for artists, they're like, whatever. I think they forget that they actually make that stuff, and so don't really develop it as well as they could. When I was coming up in the industry, a bitter rivalry between Maya and 3ds Max, and then Autodesk bought them both. So when I was using Maya, it was Silicon Graphics owned it. It was Alias Wavefront was the original company. Then Autodesk. Then Maya became its own company. They became independent from SGI. And they were really excited about it because they were a small company, not unlike Pixelogic at the time. And then Autodesk bought them, and they just became kind of, whatever, we're the industry standard, we don't care. So it's kind of been a bummer since then. Didn't have the same spirit as when I first got into Maya. And then they bought 3ds Max and everything else. And since then, it's been kind of bland. Blender came along. Blender and Houdini, of course, have done a nice job of shaking things up. Over the years, I keep seeing the industry, and what happens is, you go through this period where everybody's trying to make the end-all piece of 3D software that does everything. And then you go through a period where there's a bunch of them competing with each other, and then a bunch of plugins and small programs come along to take care of a particular problem, like UV mapping or texturing, all that kind of stuff. And then those programs start to get bloated, and then they become the program that does everything. And it goes back and forth, It's kind of funny. I think I might be obsessing about this leg a little too much. Maybe it might be time to go on to a different part. Let's see. As the basics are there, I think. It's better than it was before. All right. So let's see. Let's save this. Yeah, I still like Maya, and I use it all the time. Let's say I like Maya. I just wish it had more enthusiastic support. I miss the days of it being kind of a young upstart. It's hard to imagine Maya as being the young upstart, but it's true. It was for a while. This is a classic insect shape right here. This very subtle S-curve. If you're doing creatures, let's actually talk about creature design. If you're doing insectoid creatures, if you can work this subtle S-curve into your limbs as much as possible, it makes it look much more organic, and there's actually an anatomical reason for it as well. Some of these limbs are obviously very straight, but if you look very subtly, you can see that S-curve running through. It depends on the view as well. But the reason is that insect limbs use pairs of muscles, right? So the human arm, right? Pairs of muscles, right? Muscles always pull in, they never push. So if this is pulling in your bicep, it's flexing this, right? If you're going like this, it's because the muscles are, the opposite muscle is pulling, right? So, and this, of course, is on the inside of your skin, hopefully. Insect muscle pairs work the same way. There's pairs of muscles, and they kind of work. If you can imagine this joint here as being like a pivot, you have one muscle attached from the top and one from the bottom. One's always pulling, so it's like a lever. I actually have an animation of this somewhere. And so, but the biggest difference is this is an exoskeleton. The muscles are on the inside of the skeleton, not on the outside of the skeleton, so you don't see them. But that sort of, those pairs of muscles pulling will often create this kind of like subtle S-curve in the joint. And if you can kind of mimic that, you can get some really, it makes it look more natural, realistic. We're looking at this kind of in perspective view. That's why this is out of focus, so you can't quite see it. But imagine a muscle attachment on the top and a muscle attachment on the bottom. You can see the muscle right here attaching on the bottom, this one. So I hope that made some kind of sense. S for Superman, Superbug. But you know, S-curves are always aesthetically pleasing, and they, you know, make things look more natural. Let me see if I can. Okay, so this is pointed towards us. That means my proportions are going to be off. All right. There's a view from the top, so now we're getting a better idea of how long this is. Now you can kind of see, you know. Let's do this. Here's a nice view. So imagine a muscle attaching right here and a muscle attaching right here. If this muscle is pulling, then that leg is coming out. If this muscle is pulling, that means the leg is coming in. All right. It also means that there's only a certain range of rotation in insect legs. Sometimes when I'm animating them, I'll cheat that a little bit, but it really should be more like your elbow. Depends on the bug again. And then, of course, you can see the bar beetle we have with the coxa and the trochanter, this stuff. This a little bit, it's almost like a socket joint. I'm not sure exactly how the muscles work here. That would be kind of an interesting thing to research, find out what the range of motion is on that part. Let's do this. Let's look from the top. I guess the closest thing we have to Superbug is the tick, right? But he's just a guy in a suit. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Okay, so let's thin this out a little bit. Let's do this. I always forget about that adjust last feature. It's kind of nice. The other side. It's tempting to make insect legs just straight up cylinders, but they rarely are. If you're interested in doing insects, I always recommend ants is the good place to start, because everything is kind of straightforward on an ant. Well, for the most part. The anatomy is all laid out there for you, and also you might not have to worry about wings. Wings are tough. But ants are a good way to start. And I modeled my first ant. I actually did a job for E.O. Wilson, who was the world's leading foremost expert on ants. He's one of my heroes. I got to meet him. He passed away a few years ago, but what a great scientist. What an amazing guy. A great author, too. But I got to do some ants for him, and the first ant was not great. I thought it was awesome, but it wasn't. And of course, it gave me a big head. So after that, I was like, oh, I'm going to design my own insects because I'm smarter than nature. And so I started designing my own insects, and they were all pretty awful, you know. And then it dawned on me, maybe I should spend a bit more time actually studying entomology before I go off and make my own bugs. Now I start making my own bugs, and they're okay, but they pale in comparison to the real thing, you know. I've mentioned before, probably the best way to learn about bugs is get to know a scientist, an entomologist, usually a natural history museum. You'll find them. They're nerdy, super nerdy people, but they're a lot of fun. And then the next best thing to do is read books and take up macro photography. Photography is great because what photography allows you to do, and I'm not a great photographer or anything like that, but I like doing it when I get a chance. But what photography allows you to do is allows you to really think about lighting and composition and all that kind of stuff, you know, especially with digital photography, and just do it instantly. So you're constantly practicing those things so that when you do get in front of a computer and you need to start making a composition from your CG creations, I don't know what I'm doing. I got lost there for a second. That was really stupid. Sorry. You've already put in a certain amount of practice, because especially when you import your photographs into like Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever and start editing and then cropping them and that kind of stuff, that's when you can really get a great job practicing doing composition and lighting real fast on stuff that wasn't that hard to make, well, presumably. And you have a lot of it, so it's a really good exercise. Yeah, my camera knowledge is, I've taken a lot of workshops and that kind of stuff, and then I've been really out of practice for a long time, so I got to relearn everything. But sometimes I go with this group called Bugshot, and they're a bunch of entomologists and bug nerds. And I've gone on trips with them to several here in California, Austin, Texas, and my favorite one, I actually went to Mozambique in Africa, and that was a lot of fun. That was one of the best trips I've ever taken. Like in the middle of the savannah, surrounded by like lions and elephants and stuff, looking at termite mounds. That was a lot of fun. I actually didn't get to see any wild elephants, but that's probably a good thing, because African elephants, especially in Mozambique, they know like other people. They a lot of them suffered a lot during the Mozambique Civil War. Some of them you can still see bullet holes in their ears. And as you know, elephants don't forget, and they actually teach their children that human beings are no good. So if you see an elephant when you're in the savannah in Mozambique, get the hell out of there as fast as you can, because they don't like you. And the lions want to eat you, or just, I don't know, harass you. Are you a Canon, Nikon, Sony? What kind of camera nerd are you? I'm a Canon person at the moment. If you really like to geek out, you should check out Nicky Bay. He is a super camera nerd. He's got all the cool toys, and he's an entomologist as well. One of my favorite photographers. Also a really cool person. Okay, I think it could be. Let's see. It's hard to judge if that's the right length. If only I had a real one. Alright, where did I put my Beetle? There it is. Right. Sorry about that. I wandered off because my actual Beetle right here. Oh, and I dropped him. And I dropped him. Let's turn on some light. Okay, so you can see here's our little friend, the Longhorn Beetle. And now I can get a better idea of what the length of the leg is. So this leg, this is the tibia. It really is just slightly, it's almost the same length as the femur. So it's nice to have a real one. Ooh, I didn't see the Fujifilm camera. I know a lot of cameras now have AI built into them, so your camera can actually detect whether or not you're looking at an insect and then adjust accordingly, which is kind of insane. I haven't played with that yet, but I've heard it's a thing. Okay, so I think this is the problem. These guys are a bit too long. Make sure we have equal symmetry on. So that's a bit too long. And then something like that. I think that works a little bit better. It's always good to have a specimen lying around so you can check out something beyond the photographs. And then this guy right here. This is, of course, is several parts. And with the ending in a claw. I'm just going to rough this out real quick. Okay, here's a great opportunity to use sculptor's mode. The old snake hook brush. Yes, I know, I'll turn on sculptors. Why just turn it on for me? That's problem here. Okay, why doesn't it want to turn on sculptors? Let's see. Save next. Yeah, I forget why this is not. Sometimes it just doesn't. Alright, screw sculpt this one. I don't know why it doesn't want to do it. So I'll just do it old school. because I had mask by polygroups on. That's why Sculpt Brush wouldn't start. I knew it was something like that. Okay, now let's try that. Okay, there we go. It's a little bit better than it was when I started. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do now is finish up today with just some working on the abdomen, just because it's a nice break from doing legs. Generally speaking, I will actually make separate pieces for each of these sclerites in the abdomen, but I'll start off by just getting the overall sculpt there. This right here, these are parts of the elytra. There we go. Well, I've made rings and then pendants. Pendants were the ones that I saw the most of when I was at the Emmys. I have a really nice wasp pendant that I made for a friend of mine, which I need to mass produce because it came out really well. Pendants and necklaces were the bigger thing, but I've seen, you can see all kinds of different stuff. I mean, I'll show you on... We had a jewelry design. This is the wasp pendant that I did. This is the Japanese giant hornet, and looks really nice. This is cast in sterling silver. I did this jumping spider pendant. This is a one-off. I submitted to a contest, but it didn't win because I think, for some reason people don't love spiders like I do, but I liked it. This is a cool. This is a pearl, black pearl, Tahitian pearl, and my friend who acquired the pearl sent me photos of it, so I was able to sculpt around the pearl. So I'll do a version without the pearl because the pearl is expensive. And then I've done some, this is a praying mantis ring, stuff like that. But what I saw the most of at the Emmys was pendants. Some of these are renders and some of these are actual things. When do I get the high-res photos? If you're talking about the my reference imagery that I'm using for the Longhorn Beetle, this is pictures that I took myself using my Canon and my Lightbox. They're not great. It's not great photography by any means, but if you would like to have a zip file of this reference, I will post a link here in the chat. What I would ask in return is if you could go to my YouTube page, Blue Patone, and subscribe as a thank you. I'd appreciate it. Let me see where I can find this. I'm looking at Dropbox real quick here. Okay. So I'm going to paste this into chat. So we download that. I'll do the same for Twitch. All right, Twitch, enough of the ads. Okay, well, whatever. There we go. There's a chat. There you go. Okay. These are a bit exaggerated at the moment. See if we can find the side view here real quick. So need to pull these guys all the way up. I should just do this. Okay. Just getting that shape a little bit better. What I'll do eventually is I'll probably come in here and either do like a manual retopo or maybe ZRemesh and just create an individual piece for each one of these so that I can make them overlap properly. It usually looks better when you do that as opposed to keeping it one big piece of geometry. If you can take the time to make different parts that overlap, then if you render, in another program, it'll look that much better. Then you can have the interaction, the subsurface, and all that kind of stuff will look really cool. It'll also be cool if you rig it to animate, then it looks better too. So you're not deforming an entire piece and warping stuff. It's like each individual part can be skinned to a joint, and then you can just move that joint, and they're kind of, there's obviously flexibility in these parts, but still kind of hard surface. Clay polish. Okay, so I think I'm going to end the live stream there tonight. So thanks for sticking around and watching me work on this bug. It's starting to look nice. I'm probably going to go back to the head next week. The head's always my favorite part. Right now it looks ridiculous. It looks very happy, which is good. I'm glad for him, even though he's dead. But, I will work on the head and start to make it look a little bit more realistic and less ridiculous. So I'm going to save next. Thanks for everybody who came out. And like I said, grab this reference imagery if you want. It's about 1 gigabyte zip file. And do me a favor and check out my YouTube channel and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Yay! Alright guys, talk to you soon. Have a good night.